This episode of the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast is proudly supported by Practice Space. You're listening to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast from Top Music. Tune in weekly as we interview music teachers and experts from around the world to explore creative activities and ideas that build learning connections in students. Our integrated music teaching approach will deepen your students' understanding of musical concepts, engage them in critical thinking, improve their reading and performance, foster their curiosity, and prepare them for a lifetime of music making.
Are you curious about how to organize your games in your studio or how to play games with students who take lessons online? Join the piano game gurus, Wright and Georgina Wilson, on Friday, August 18th at 9 a.m. Central, 3 p.m. London, as we will be sharing all of our tips and tricks. Register for the live event at TopMusicCo.com/workshop. We hope to see you there. If you can't make it to the live session, that's okay. The session will be available for a limited time replay. Hi, teachers. Welcome back to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast from Top Music Co. I'm Tara Wright, the Community and Content Manager at Top Music. Before we jump into all of the piano game talk, we want to let you know about our latest freebie that we had the pleasure of creating, which is the ultimate checklist to gamifying your music lessons. This checklist gives our absolute favorite products that we have in our studio to keep your games organized. And we also give you our must-have products to make game playing a success in your studio. To get your freebie, go to TopMusicCo.com/game checklist. At Top Music, we love guiding and supporting music teachers just like you to engage, motivate, and inspire your students and run the most sustainable studio business possible using our IMT system. Well, it's great to be with you for another week of the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast. This is episode 342, where we'll be discussing why you should be using piano games during lessons. And I have a lovely co-host with me today, Georgina Wilson, who is the social media manager at Top Music, and she is also a piano games creator. Thanks for being here with me today, Georgina.
Hi, excited to be here and talk about music games, one of my favorite topics to talk about.
I know, we absolutely love piano games. If you don't know, Georgina and I both make piano games, and I actually started here at Top Music running the Top Music marketplace that we used to have. And it's because I was so passionate about playing games with my students and making games to make lessons really fun. And one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to playing games in your studio is that they take too much time during lessons because, you know, most of us only have 30 minutes to go through everything, and that's such a short amount of time. But we're here to tell you, you've got time to play games.
Mm-hmm. Definitely time to play games. One thing that I like to do is use a timer, especially for those students who want to play games forever. If I say, no, we're going to have 3 minutes on a timer, that's our limit for the game at the start of the lesson. When that timer goes off, you're getting on with your piece. They sometimes complain, but then they get used to it, and every week they're like, okay, 3 minutes for the game to start off with, and then I'll move on to things. But it's just such a good use, that little time, especially if you have a funky sound that it rings with. I've got a little jazzy piano and I just love it.
Yes, and that's the thing is some games may take longer than 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but the thing is you can put a time limit on it, and if you don't finish the game, it's not the end of the world and it's okay. You can pull a stop on it. And the other thing is you can play them at the beginning of the lesson. You can play them in the middle of the lesson. You can also use them as a reward at the end of the lesson if the students do really well for you. A lot of times I'll usually use games to incentivize my students to do the things that they're not wanting to do. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Yes, sort of like a little, but if you don't do that now, we won't have time for a game. Okay, I'll do it now then so that we can play a game. It's a very cunning thing to do.
And it really works with the littles because sometimes they aren't as focused as some of the older students. And they're like, I just want to play a game. And it's like, well, I'll let you play this game, but first you need to do this for me. And then they're like, okay. And I'm like, you got to get this perfect, or I set a goal for them. And then once you reach that goal, then I'm like, all right, we can now play your game.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you twist it that you really want to play the game and you're like, oh, come on, let's do this because I really want to beat you at this game. But only when you've done this will I let myself play this game with you. They're like, oh, if you want to play it, I must do it. Well, then, okay, I'll do it for you.
Yes. And the thing I love about games is it's not only for the students, it's for us as well.
Absolutely.
These games make our students happy, but let's be honest, it also makes us happy when we play them because we don't like boring lessons. And I'm here to tell you, when I have a new student coming in, one of the first things I ask them is, do you want to have boring piano lessons? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, neither do I. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to have fun and you're going to enjoy doing this because learning piano, it's a lot of hard work.
Oh, absolutely. The look on a new student's face when you say, we're going to play a game, they're like, oh, game in a lesson? What is this? And you're like, oh, yes, it's so exciting. It just makes the lesson run smoother because they're not just there for 30 minutes sitting at the piano, just staring at the music, doing that. Breaks it up for us as well because, getting them focused for 30 minutes on a piece, that's hard.
Very hard. And, sometimes our students are having not so great days. And once you get to know your students and you see them walk in, you're like, oh, they've had a rough day today. Something is really going on. So I use games to kind of help cheer them up and get them in the mood for piano. And let's be honest, sometimes we have bad days as well.
Yeah. When you've had a tricky student and you need a break to just sort of like refresh yourself, you start the next lesson like, let's start with a game today, just while I sort of get my thoughts together again. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you're chill and then you can teach them better because you don't want to go into a lesson feeling frustrated because the last student annoyed you. You want this new student to get all of your nice attention. And sometimes a game is the best way to do that.
I agree. That's why I like games so much. Not that I have a whole list of frustrating students, but, life happens for all of us. And it's not fair to the students if we're not in our best mood.
No.
And
I had a student the other week turn up with actual clenched fists, and his mum was like, he's not had a very good day. And I'm like, I can tell. Look at the anger on his face. And I was like, should we start with a game? Fist unclenched. Yes, please. That's what I need. I'm like, oh, bless you.
No, sometimes our students, they just have such hard days. And my goal is when they leave my studio, they're a little bit happier than when they came in. And
absolutely.
I want to be that kind of that moment in their week that they're really excited for. So if it's spending, 3 or 5 minutes on playing a game, that's covering what they're learning and something that they need to refresh themselves on. I mean, it's a win-win situation for me.
Oh, yeah, because then they associate piano with being happy because they're like, oh, my piano lesson made me really happy. They go home, they see their piano. If I play the piano at home, that's going to make me happy because piano equals happy. They'll practice, they'll come back, play to you. You'll be like, oh, yay, very happiness all around.
I agree. I absolutely love it. But, games aren't just for our young students. We can play them with our teenagers and our adults.
Absolutely. What's the oldest one that you've played a game with recently?
Julie is in her 60s.
Brilliant. What did you play?
We played one of my chord games that I recently made. Julie's been really amazing, and she's inspiring me to make more and do more. She's wanting me to write a book. And so now I'm writing all this extra materials for her. And every week she's like, okay, now your homework is going to be, which is really cool. So sometimes I bring in new games or new materials I'm making specifically for her and other adults. And she's completely game. At first I was like, I usually don't teach adults, but I'm really excited for these lessons, and you've had a lot of experience playing piano, but really it's your theory that you need a lot of help on because you were never taught that while you were taking piano. And I was like, here's my plan for you. We're going to, play these games, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And at first she was like, I don't know about all of this. And now she absolutely loves it. And she's really encouraging about it and encourages me to do more with it.
So you think that adults just wouldn't like the games, but they really do. I think my most recent win was a 13-year-old who acts like she's 18, 19, like she's too cool for everything. And the amount of eye rolls I get every lesson. And she was having one of those days she couldn't bother to do anything. And she was really battling with ledger lines. And she's like, I just don't get them. I don't like them. I don't want to do them. And I was like, okay, do you want to play a game? And I was expecting no, of course I don't. I'm 13. But she's like, yeah, I can. And I was like, oh, okay. So got a game out, and I was expecting she to see it and be like, no, this isn't good enough for me. And she got so involved. And I was like, oh, this is the happiest I've seen her in ages. And now she understands measure lines. So that was a win.
That's perfect. And it's really exciting to see those students that you don't think are going to want to play games. And then all of a sudden they're playing the games and they absolutely love it. And they're actually learning something from it, which is the biggest takeaway.
And they'll remember that because now when she sees Ledger Line, she remembers that silly little game we played that she loved so much. She's like, oh, I remember that game. Okay, yeah. And then they link it to that fun time and it all just makes sense in their head.
Exactly. And it's all about the experiences that we're giving our students. So if they're just coming in and going through the motions and just learning how to play the music, I mean, let's be honest, that's not really fun. But if we give them experiences and they get to actually interact and do different things and get off the bench and learn in different ways, that's going to help their memory and remember everything down the road.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all about music, games being a fun way to learn.
Looking for a fun, effective way to boost your students' enthusiasm? As music teachers, we're all familiar with the challenge of motivating students to practice consistently, and this is where Practice Space shines. Practice Space's interactive features create a social side to your studio that truly engages your students. Your studio's leaderboard encourages friendly competition, while long-term goals like practice streaks add a rewarding challenge. Plus, completing assignments earns students practice gems, which they can spend on avatars, backgrounds, or in your own fun, customized shop. Sending students a clear practice agenda is also simple. The digital assignment journal lets you send PDFs, videos, MP3s, and more. Say goodbye to sifting through Google Drive, emails, and texts for worksheets or music. The Practice Space Media Library ensures easy organisation. Plus, with their new feed feature, students can send you their practice videos throughout the week. Teachers can easily provide real-time feedback from quick emoji reactions through to more thorough comments. Get a 30-day free trial and a 50% discount for the first 3 months exclusively to the IMT podcast using the code TOP50, TOP50. Visit practicespaceapp.com today.
Mm-hmm. It's when you hear the parents who had lessons when they were a kid and they were like, no, I had piano lessons, but I gave up because I got a little bit too bored because nothing interesting was happening. And then they watch their kids and they're like, yeah, if I had this, I'd have stuck with it. I'd have been able to play something because I'd have had fun learning rather than just sit down, play this, nice, leave. And you can see them all on their face. It's like, oh, yeah, my kid is having the best time with this. They're going to stick with this for a long time. And that's what we want.
Exactly. It's all about the retention. And I run a multi-teacher studio, and I have my room filled with games. It's filled with color. I go all out for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the other teachers, they don't always want to play games. They never experienced games. And so now I go to them and I'm like, maybe you should play games because have you realized how good my retention is?
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons is because they're having fun. And maybe if you had a little bit more fun in your lessons, maybe the retention numbers would stay higher.
Yeah, and when you get transfer students coming to you, they're like, yeah, my last teacher wasn't like fun. Are you fun? And then they see everything out and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you're fun. Okay, I'll stick with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think our students are so overwhelmed with everything they have going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Today's kids are so busy. They have so many extracurriculars. And I mean, school's been kind of tough because they had to go through the COVID years, staying at home, doing all the online learning. And then I think last year was their first official year back for the full year. And so that was kind of a big year for our kids.
Yeah.
And I think coming in and having fun is really important to them, kind of gives them an outlet. And that's also something that we want our students to use for the rest of their lives, is to keep music in their lives and use it as an outlet.
Absolutely. I think being a kid and being a teenager is hard. Now, I mean, it's always hard, but it seems hard with the internet and social media. They have to grow up quicker. Like, I've got little 8-year-olds quoting TikTok videos that they've been watching. I'm like, oh, you're 8. Go outside, play. And I think that is the important thing. If they don't play anymore, like a lot of the kids that I have, at least, they don't play games with their family. They're just all on their screens. They're ignoring each other, watching Netflix. So when I'm like, here is a physical game, that's a music game. We're going to go over your note reading, but we're also going to learn about how it is to sort of like navigate around a board and think, oh, if I go this way, will I beat the other person? You also teach them to deal with losing, because how often do you get a student who's like, I lost, I'm so angry, I hate this. And then the next couple times you're like, do I let them win just to like sort of have a nice, easy time of it? Or do I win and teach them it's okay to lose sometimes? Because all of these games teach students so many different things, not just the music. There's so many different layers to it.
I agree. I completely agree. And you brought up a really good point when you said that our students are always on devices. And they don't really play physical games with their families. And I find that to be really true. Now, something that's really cool is some of our piano games that we have are actually digital games. So if we need a way to kind of transition our students into something, we can be like, well, we can play this online game like on the iPad or on the computer.
It's like, oh, iPad.
Exactly. And it gets them really energized. And it's really great because we're still going over the things that they need to learn. So it's a win-win. And, I find that when I play games with my students, I find where they're struggling the most.
Yes. Because you isolate different things that in the context of a whole piece, they can sort of hide behind not fully understanding. But if you pull that topic out and ask them a direct question and they go, yeah, I've never actually really understood that, but I have never admitted it, but now I can't say anything else other than I don't understand. You know how to help them.
Exactly. And I will pull games out just to kind of test some of my students. Yes. So one of my favorite games, my students' favorite games, I guess, is I have musical Jenga.
Nice.
So what I did is I went through the entire first book, and I usually use Piano Pronto, so it's the Prelude book's blue. So I took a blue marker and I actually wrote out different terms or different things from that book that I would quiz them on at the end. And then on the other side of the block, I did movement 1, so it's green. So I wrote all of those in green. So now it works for me for 2 different levels, which I absolutely love. And then what I'll ask the students is, okay, pull that block out. Now, what does that term mean? Or what is that? Or can you clap that rhythm? And so they have to do that first before they can put the block on the top. And my students absolutely love it. But then it's also one of those games that I'm like, oh, you don't know that? We have to go over how to clap those rhythms, or you really don't understand dynamics. So we got to figure that out. And we can really drill in on those things.
Oh yeah, I agree. I love that game. That's a good idea. They love games that they already kind of recognize because they know how to play it, and then the musical element is what they really focus on because they understand. Like Django, I'm pulling it out, putting it on the top. Oh, I've got to identify this musical symbol. I see. And if they understand quickly what they've got to do, they're so into it, and it's great to see. And yeah, identifying the problems, then you can get out another game to teach them those things.
Exactly. And one thing I'm trying to get my kids to do is I'm trying to get them to solve their own problems.
Yes.
So a lot of them, even at like my 6-year-olds, will be like, I don't know this, but I know it's in my book. And they'll go grab their book and they'll flip through it and be like, it's here. And I'm like, great, I'm glad you found that in there. Now let's dive a little bit deeper to make sure you really understand this.
It's great when they can sort of teach it to themselves rather than rely on you to tell them what's gone wrong or what they don't understand. I have a different way of doing that. I have a sloth who's called Slothman. It's a great name. And he comes along to ask them questions because he doesn't understand. And I find that the students, if I don't think she knows what the answer is, but she doesn't want to tell me because then she'll feel bad about it. But if the sloth asks and he's like, I don't understand how many beach dishes meant to be. That's his voice, by the way. It's a great voice. And they're like, oh, okay, Slothman, right, let me help you. I don't understand either. So let's work it out together. And I'm like, I was right. She doesn't understand. But because they're telling the sloth, they're happy to work it out. And then sometimes it'll be, can you just ask Slothina, because that's my name, to just check that I'm right? And then I'll talk to the sloth and he'll be like, yes, you're absolutely right. And it's just a whole nother level of teaching themselves through playing, but they feel good about it rather than ashamed that they're getting it wrong.
Yes. And the great thing about the games is that even if they're getting it wrong, we can spin it and make it in a fun way.
Yes. It's not pointing at something on the page going, what's that? And then feeling bad about it going, I don't know, sorry. And you go, well, you should know. You hold up a card and you're like, oh, what's the answer? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, let's find out. And then we can move our little character and it will all be fun. Like you spin it in a fun way, they don't feel bad about it. And they just want to try again. Like when that note or whatever comes up again, they'll be like, oh, I remember this because this is what I didn't know before. But now I do know because of the game.
Yes, it makes them really curious and they like to go discover the things on their own, which I think is really important because most of the time our students aren't with us throughout the week. They need to be doing a lot of the work outside of the studio. So it's really great when they can get curious and they're willing to discover new things on their own, and then they can bring it back to us and be like, I really love this song, or I figured this out. And it's really exciting to see.
Or when they've taught their parent and they're like, I remembered this, so I wanted to teach my mum it. And because you know that they know it well enough to teach someone else, you're like, oh, well, that was a little win because now your mum can play it too because you understand it.
Exactly. And sometimes I'll even sing games home with my students. That way the parents can play along, or if they have a sibling that knows about piano or music, they can play. Or I'll tell my students, now your challenge for this week is to teach your parents how to play this game. And with some of my things, I'll actually give the parents a cheat sheet so they don't feel so overwhelmed because it's also a lot for the parents too.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I've got a couple of like sibling duos. So that is a perfect opportunity to be like, well, here's the game. You both know how to read music. You can both play it. And then you've got that competitive nature within the siblings who want to outdo each other. Like, no, I'm going to read the notes quicker than you're going to read them. But it's just great.
Yes, I agree. I mean, if you didn't take anything away from this episode, I hope you will at least try to play some games during your lessons, because games really transformed my studio and the journey that I'm taking with teaching, and all of my other teachers that work for me, they're now on the game train, as I like to call it. And I know it's really transformed how you teach as well, Georgina.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I'd have kept everyone for as long as I have if I wasn't the fun teacher playing all these games.
Yes.
Hi everyone, I wanted to take a moment to let you know about an amazing community of music teachers ready to welcome you over at Top Music Pro. Top Music Pro is the global hub for music teachers looking to connect, learn, grow, and be challenged in both their teaching and studio businesses. Community members save time by accessing hundreds of step-by-step lesson plans, creative teaching frameworks, business guides, online courses, and workshops. We offer training in topics as diverse as music technique, lead sheets, website building, intermediate repertoire, group teaching, and special needs teaching. We also save you money through our extensive discounts, including those with Music Notes, Sheet Music Plus, Music Room, Office Depot, Tonebase, and many more. And if you like sheet music, all our members get a free book of studio licensed, beautifully engraved sheet music each and every month. As a valued podcast listener, you can check out the Top Music Pro community free for 14 days by heading to topmusicpro.com, clicking Join Now on our studio tier, and using the special coupon code IMTPOD23. That's all one word. So that's IMTPOD23. We can't wait to welcome you inside.
So we really hope you enjoyed today's episode. And for a couple reminders, we would love for you to head on over to the Guitar Podcast this week, episode 62. Expert strategies and solutions to overcome 6 challenges of guitar teaching. Head on over to topmusic.co/guitar062. And we would love for you to join us for our live workshop on August 18th. We are hosting a live workshop where we show you how we organize our resources and how to use games in online lessons. To sign up for a free workshop, head to topmusic.co/workshop. That's the end of the show this week. Next week on the podcast, Georgina and I will be back talking about how to use no prep games in your music lessons. I'm Tara Wright, and you've been listening to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast. Speak to you next time.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham, and this is the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast, a production of Top Music. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.